Hi guys, it's Emily from Nobel Novels and welcome to today's video. This is my April wrap-up part 2. And I did it! The second half of the month went a lot better. Basically, I listened to some friends, I listened to you guys, and I decided to mood read, and I think also setting those books where I added extra books to my TBR midway through the month. That went really well because then I could choose books off my shelves that I was really excited about. It allowed me more mood read time, and some of them were 5 stars. And I didn't feel guilty because they weren't on my main TBR because I'd already spoken about them on the other one. So I didn't feel guilty. Now, stats-wise, yeah, what we're going to do is, I will be honest, I may be giving you the stats and then I may admit to a slight shopping overload on Saturday. Just gone when I went book shopping with Gemma, who was previously a reader book Gemma. Yeah, I kind of may have bought more books than I'm decreased by, so but hey ho. So the first couple of minutes is just going to be the stats. I don't want this video to be too long because when you hear how many books I've read this month, I won't be going into detail. I have got little Goodreads reviews and certain of the 5-star books have got bigger reviews, so I'll explain that as I go to. Okay, so somehow I read 36 books this month and they were done by the end of the 29th because yesterday was the 30th. I'm filming this on the 1st of May. Yes, I know I've got the 2 videos, the book haul and the book and the wrap up on different days, but because the way it worked, I was working yesterday, so I had to stop filming. I started my May books a day early. So yeah, but here we go. I read 36 books. 33 of them were off the unread TBR. I did unhaul 3 unread books. One of them was a complete, I started it and it was just not right. Another was a DNF and another one I just looked at my shelf. I think there was something, I think it may have been another DNF, but I can't remember. And because obviously you would have seen at the start of the video, on Monday's video, my book haul, I only gained 20 books. So April's unread TBR was 360. We're starting May, not counting the books that I bought, at 344 books, which is minus 16. But I may be starting the book with 18 books already, and that's not counting the fact that the day before this goes live, I'm working at Baz Books. So yeah, I'm gonna have to be really good. But again, the whole point of this, I said I'm not going to be beating myself up. I'm going to mood read and I'm going to enjoy myself. So let's tell you the stat of the genres. I read 1 fantasy, 1 thriller, although my fantasy is kind of, I'm not sure if it's fantasy or historical fiction. 1 thriller, 1 graphic novel, 2 classics, 4 non-fiction, and this is the shock, 13 contemporary and 14 historical fiction. So for the first time ever, I think, historical fiction's beaten contemporary. But like I said, I mood read. I had 1 DNF, not counting the one that I literally looked at in bed. I don't count this one, the one that I looked at and barely touched because I only read 10 pages. But the first one was a DNF, and that was Mr. Rosenblum's List. It was a buddy read with Gemma, and we started it. We read I actually DNF'd it quite far in, actually, for me. I think I actually DNF'd it after about 50, even 100 pages. I never DNF'd that far in, but I just didn't connect with it. I had 1 unrated book, which I'll show you in a minute, 4 3 stars, 5 3.5 stars, 9 4 stars, 10 4.5 stars, and 8 5 stars. So again, this is shocking because normally my 5 stars is higher, but I think I'm going to do a video in June about the star rating thing because I think I'm getting a lot harder on myself. I'm getting a lot tougher on my 5-star rating because some of these 4.5 stars were amazing. They just didn't quite get there. So them's the stats. I'm doing a Charlie saying. That's the stats. Let me show you the books. So the first unrated book was Confessions of a Male Nurse by Michael Alexander. I bought this when I went shopping to down south to Bognor with last summer, and I wanted to read it. Some of this is actually set in New Zealand, so it's a non-fiction book which I partly read for People April. I did want to read a couple of memoirs for People April, which I'll link Ros's channel down below. And this is Confessions of a Male Nurse, and my cousin's high up as a male nurse, and I thought that was why I kind of picked this up. I've done a lot to do with the NHS, but actually half of this is set in New Zealand and half of it's set in the UK. So this is actually quite interesting to compare the two ways of nursing being run. And yeah, it's quite emotional actually. I found certain bits were very emotional, but certain bits were really funny. So I did really enjoy this, but I want to give that back. Then a book I've got to keep, my first 3 stars, is my Tinchuzzle Wit. I read this over 2 months, and if I'm being honest, it was not like, it's probably one of my least favourite. It was sort of, a lot of this is set in America, and Martin Chuzzlewit's a real grumpy old git. But I didn't connect with it. I struggled with it. I think I skim-read some of it. I am keeping it because I think it might be good to reread, but it was not my favourite Dickens by far. I loved Nicholas Nickleby, and I loved obviously David Copperfield and Great Expectations, but this is not the best. I said something to do. In January, I'm going to I'm going to rank them all, but this won't rank very high. Then another 3 stars, and I think I'm rating it 3 stars but I am not the target audience. This is a middle grade book that my sister gave me in December, and This Is Not My Fault by Kath Howe. And this is quite interesting in the fact that it does talk about sibling relationships. There's 2 sisters, Maya and Rose, and they won't talk to each other even though they're sisters, not since the accident. And there was a lot about sibling rivalry, and one of the girls is sort of going off on one. This could actually be used for the Spoonies readathon, because in this, one of the girls is recovering from an injury, and there's another girl that's got learning difficulties in this, and it's quite interesting. And they go off on their first school trip. Now Mia's going off on her first school trip in June, and I'm intrigued by it. And yeah, I think this is one that I would recommend to the middle grade thing. I might even give it to Mia actually. Yeah, I might actually put that to one side and get Mia to read that. I think she would like this. So there you go, Mia. Then to a book that I picked up off my shelves because I've had it for ages. It's the second in the series, and this is the Workhouse Angel. I already read Workhouse Orphans, and there's another one that I will be reading probably July time maybe, and this is set in Liverpool, and it's about a girl who is thought to be an orphan, and it's really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's 3 stars. Was it 3? Yeah, no, this was actually 3.5 stars. So it is good. And Angel, there's like a girl who is like, her only possessions are a rag doll that she has in her arms when she arrives at the orphanage, at the workhouse, and she has quite a hard time. It's quite a mystery. There are some triggers in this, so let me know if you want to know about them. But it is, again, Holly Green's a good historical fiction author. Good. Not the best, but this was actually a lot better than I thought, and I actually flew through it. Then a book I got from my charity shop for 20p not very long ago, and this is actually historical fiction, which I didn't realise. And this is The Lost Act of Keeping Secrets. And this is like a YA historical fiction, so again, that's probably why I rated it 3.5 stars. This is set in the 1950s, and England is still recovering from the Second World War. And this is the enchanting story of Penelope Wallace and her eccentric family at the start of the rock and roll era. And this is quite fun. Really light, really intriguing, and Penelope, a bit of an upper class bit of historical fiction. But it's really sweet. I really did enjoy that. It was worth the 20p. In fact, it's probably worth more than that. And then I read a book that's been on my shelves for ages. And this is my first of my 4 stars. This is Dancing in the Dark by Maureen Lee. This is set over a very long period of time, but it is very atypical of Maureen Lee's works. A lot of her stories are very similar, and this is one when Millie Cameron is asked to sort through her belongings of her Aunt Flo, who recently died. She is not at all happy. She hardly knew her aunt, and besides, Millie has a busy life. There are triggers for domestic abuse in this, so please be aware of this. I wouldn't normally tell you the triggers, but don't pick this up unless you can cope with that. And we have 2 timelines. We have Millie's story in the present, and then Aunt Flo's story in the past, and they are very good. It's triggering, but it is actually one of her better works, I think. But again, be aware that the triggers, if I would have known the triggers, I might have been a bit more careful when I was reading that. Then to another 4 stars, which I read, I told you about this in my wrap-up part 1, that I was going to be reading this for the People April, and this is Daphne du Maurier's Gerald A Portrait, and this is the actual autobiography that Daphne du Maurier wrote about her father, Gerald du Maurier. And I found this very interesting. If anyone wants this, please let me know, because I think I would like this to go to a du Maurier fan. So let me know if you want this. Whoever comments first will get it. And this is, like I said, it's about Gerald du Maurier, Daphne du Maurier's father, and it's his story, and it's really, really interesting. It's a lot better than I thought it would be, actually, and I really thoroughly loved it. So I'm going to put that to one side, because if you like Daphne du Maurier and you want to know about her father, that was a good one. Then another book that I told you about in my wrap-up part 1 that I was going to be reading this, and this is Victoria by Daisy Goodman, and this is Queen Victoria's early years. And there is actually stuff in this that I didn't actually remember from the TV series, which I watched some of that, and I don't remember from some of the books that I've read about Queen Victoria. So this is actually quite interesting. Some of it, again, if you know Queen Victoria's history, you know about John Conroy, who was Queen Victoria's mother's partner, and you know some bad stuff about him, and you know about that sort of story, and it's about how she met her husband and her intriguing relationship with Lord Melbourne. And it's quite good, very good, 4 stars, quite a good book, but we'll have to wait and see. Then a Kathy Brownlee, but I'm going to let my mum read this, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this, because this is where we go into the 4.5-star books, and I am a massive Kathy Brownlee fan, and this book was just what I needed. It's a big book, but it's Wick Paul. I don't know whether to keep it or not. I'm going to let my mum read it and see if I will keep it. And this is about Holly Swift, who landed a dream job in Wick Paul, a beautiful manor house, sitting proudly in the heart of the village where she grew up. And this is really sort of countryside, manor house, romance, country hall place, really good contemporary, really cosy. But again, it tackles some stuff in this that you don't know about. Her mother's got some issues, and Holly's trying to help her mother, and yeah, you do actually have some other health issues in this. So again, you could use this for the Spanish readathon, because there's some stuff in this that you could use. So not that I'm promoting readathon too much, but this is quite a good cosy contemporary. Definitely one I recommend. So that's why I was going to get that. Then a book that I rated, it was one of my favourite. This was my reread, so this was my previous favourite, and I actually rated it 4.5 stars this time rather than 5 stars. And this is Tiredness by Philippa Gregory. I am keeping it, but it's funny how I dropped half a star since the last time. And this was, everyone knows about Tiredness. It's the first in the series of 3. I've got Charlie from Charles Heathcote got me Dawnlands, which is the 3rd in the series, and I'm going to read, so I wanted to read the first now, and I wanted to reread Dark Tides. I'm going to have to reread Dark Tides at some point, and then I can read Dawnlands again. So just because I want to refresh myself on the series before I start the 3rd one. And this is about, obviously set in 1648. I've spoken about it loads of times. Very good book, but it was funny how it dropped half a star. And another book that has dropped half a star, but I will be talking about this one when I do my live show with Gemma from Gemma Books. This is the last in the series of the Alison Weir series, the 6th Tudor Queen. This is Catherine Parr's book. I will be talking about this obviously when we do our live discussion, probably at the start of May at some point. We don't know when yet, because Gem's got to finish the book. This is Catherine Parr's story, and again it dropped half a star. You want to know why? Watch our live when it goes out. I'll be announcing it on my channel when we decide when we're doing it. But this is Catherine Parr's story, and it's very, very good, very interesting, but for some reason it dropped half a star. So another 4.5 star book that you would have heard me talk about in the wrap-up part 1, and this was my book that one of my best friends, Tracy, got me for my birthday present. Again, I'm going to let my mum read this because this is quite a contemporary that she would love. This is Libby Page's book, The 24-Hour Cafe. Libby Page wrote The Lido. I've got The Island still to read that Danny got me, and apparently she's writing a sequel to The Lido, which I'm bloody excited about because I love The Lido, and I'm going to get that as soon as it comes out. And this is literally, most of this is set over 24 hours. They've obviously got the prologue at the end. No, yeah, it's a prologue at the end, isn't it? They've got the and they've got the end bit, which is 1 year later. But apart from that, it's all set over 24 hours, which is kind of quite a different format for me. And this is 2 separate main characters of what lead us through it, and that's Hannah and Mona. They're the main characters that run over those 24 hours, but you do meet people that go to the cafe over those 24 hours, and at the end you find out what happened to all the... And it's a bloody brilliant book. You do also go back in time over this, during this book, to Mona and Hannah's stories, which is really good. Again, there are some triggers in this, so be warned, but this is a really, really good book. I thoroughly loved it. Love Libby Page's contemporaries, and I'm so glad I picked that up. It's a mum book. 2 more 4.5 stars. Now this one was my booktuber favourite author, and this was Gemma. Like I said, the other Gemma gets confusing. Gemma that was previously on booktube. Gemma. Rose Train's her favourite author, and I've been really hit and miss with her books, and yet I loved this so much. Lily is. This reminds me of Wuthering Heights in the fact that it's a very, very dark book, but very, very good. It's probably my favourite of hers yet. And this is set in London in 1850. On a cold winter's night, a baby is abandoned at the gates of the park, only to be saved by a young policeman and taken to the Foundling Hospital. And then Lily's story, and it is very, very dark and very mysterious and very gothic-y, and I thoroughly loved it. But I want other people to read it, so I'm going to give this to a charity shop, because I think, although I loved it, it's not one I would necessarily want to reread because it is so dark. And another one that I'm going to let my mum read, so mum's going to love me today, The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle. This was the book that Chris got me for, my partner got me for Christmas, and this is one of Matt Cain's newest books. I'm definitely going to look for, I've not heard of many male authors writing contemporaries, and this is, yes, we've got an older male character, which is Albert Entwistle. So if you kind of like Our Doris by Charles Heathcote, I think you're going to like this. It's not as funny though, and this is LGBTQI plus characters in it, which I loved. We've got characters over that are so diverse. It's a really diverse but amazing contemporary book. And this is about Albert Entwistle, who's 64, and he's living on his own. He's a postman, doesn't talk to anyone. And then things start to change, and he makes a friend, and he's also got his friend that he makes in this, and it's their stories, and it's about a community and living up to a past. Again, there are some triggers in this, but please ask me for them, because that will give a spoiler away if I give you the triggers. But it's very, very good book. Really, really enjoyed that. And then start with my 5 stars. Now, the first one I read for Trans April, finally got around to it. I'm keeping this. I am keeping this. I want Mia to read it, I think. I think Mia's going to like this, although I don't know. I don't know if she's quite... Let me know if she's nearly 11. Is she too young to read this now, or do I save this? I don't know yet. Those of you that read Felix. And this is actually a book that was banned in America because it talks about trans people, and it's about Felix Love, who's never been in love, yet he's painfully aware of the irony. He desperately wants to know what it's like, and it seems so easy for everyone else but him. Felix also secretly fears that he's the one marginalisation too many, black, queer and transgender, to ever get his own happily ever after. Thoroughly love this. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, yeah, what do you think is going to be on my favourites? I will be honest, I think this is probably what... No, it wasn't going to be one of my favourites, but yeah, I think it is actually. This is actually going to be one of my favourites for the month. But I'm going to let you guess then that the other favourite. That's probably going to be obvious, because, yeah, I'm pretty obvious at what's my favourite. But this is really good. Thoroughly loved it. This is a keepie. So that's my keepies. Why Mummy Swears. Reread. Thoroughly loved it. Really good fun. Second in the series. Bloody loved it. I think I loved it more on a reread. It is such a funny series. It's a series I'm probably going to be reading over and over again, because it's one that makes me remember that as much as being a mum is the best job ever, it's also the hardest work ever. So love this. Talk about that series so many times. And then another book, this is a book that I got in the charity shop, not very long near us, for only like 25p. No, 20p actually. And this is Maybe One Day by Debbie Johnson, and oh my god, this like broke me at times. I think I rated it on Doodle, Borrow Box, 4.5 stars, but thinking about it, it's 5. And this is, what if you had the chance to find lost love? Jess still thinks about the man who disappeared from her life 17 years ago, and a tragedy that tore them apart. When she discovers a hidden box of letters in her mother's attic, Jess realises the truth about why he walked away and why he's been kept from her all this time. This would be good for mental health as on May, because it's got some mental health issues in it. So if you want to put for that, that would be really good. I think Mum's going to read this, but I think it's one I'm going to keep anyway. Even if Mum doesn't want it, I'm going to keep it, because I think I want to reread this. I think I can get more out of it. That's why I think I rated it higher when I thought about it. Now to a book that I thoroughly loved, and this is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I enjoyed Circe, but I loved this. I read it with Mark, who's Mark, and he's my friend from Instagram. He's partners with Tom from who used to be Tom Reads Things, and we are going to be doing a video on this. We're going to have we're going to chat, we're going to record it, and I'm going to put up a live review. So I don't want to tell you too more than that. But this is Song of Achilles, and after being hit and miss with Stoneblind, this excelled it by far. Then again, another book. This was the last book I finished, one of the last books I finished in the month. This was Gemma, read a book, Gem got me this for Christmas, and it's TikTok, looks quite YA, but I bloody loved it. This is again a book you need to read for Mental Health on May. It's very American, and it's sort of set, these people are dentists at the start, and it's romance and things like that. But it's very good for Mental Health on May. I really recommend it for that, because it was just excelled, and I'm going to keep it. I don't think Mum would like that, but I'm going to keep that. I'm going to put that somewhere. I've got to try and find room on my shelves. Then a book I read for the readathon, for a tandem read along, The Spoon Stealer. I literally started it just after I recorded wrap up part 1, and my review is on Instagram and on Goodreads, because I've got a very long review on that because I read it for Tandem, and this was one of Tandem's best bloody books ever. And this is set partly in the 1960s and partly in after the First World War, and it's this lovely lady Emmeline who never fitted in her parent family's farm in Nova Scotia. So at some point she goes to England and she creates her own life there then, and then something happens and she receives a message that she's inherited her parent family's farm in Nova Scotia, and she goes back and she tackles her past and deals with her past and meets members of her family she's not seen, meets new members of her family, and it's just such a bloody good book. I thoroughly love this. If you like historical fiction, good for books set in Nova Scotia, it's, oh my god, it's just amazing. I thoroughly loved it. And then last but not least, a book I borrowed from Mia. It's my first time I'm finally starting on the Heartstopper series. It's Heartstopper Volume 1. It's my borrowed book from Mia. I'm going to be reading the Heartstopper Volume 2, probably sneaky peek for the end of May, because apparently I can definitely read the first 2 before the Heartstopper series comes out on Netflix. And yeah, why has it taken me so long to start this series? Basically, Mia is now going to be owning the 5th book when it comes out, because I can't let her wait. I want her to have all of these. So she loved them. I love them. Why is it taking me so long to read them? This is one of my first rarities of graphic novels, and I thoroughly loved it. So that's the books that I read. You can already guess that Felix Ever After is one of my favourites for the month, and Song of Achilles is easily by far second, and this is going in my favourites for the year. And to be honest, the more I think about Felix Ever After, I think that's going to go on my favourites for the year, because I just loved it. I really loved it. Both of them were absolutely amazing, and the second half picked up. So let's see what the first half, we'll see what May's reading is going to be like. I've got some amazing books. Obviously this month I'm hosting my readathon, and we've got Misery May, and we've got other readathons happening, and Mental Health on May, which I'll definitely be dealing with more. So let me know, what books are your favourites for the month? Let me know in the comments down below. Is there any books you want to know more about that I've read there? If you want to know any more details, please let me know down below. And I hope you all had a great reading month in April, and I look forward to hearing from you all. I love the comments. Keep chatting to me in the comments, it makes my day. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, not subscribed yet, bring on my ding-a-ling, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.